You're watching Throttle House, and I'm James. And we don't normally do vehicle tours on the main channel, but when we learned how absolutely ridiculous this vehicle was, we thought, well, that's a bit too insane for the fellas over at Extra Throttle House to get their hands on. Because we weren't ready. You're not ready.
Welcome to the new Corvette ZR1. An absolute middle finger to every supercar on sale. Chevy has taken what we all thought the ZR1 would be and cranked it to 111. You are looking at the first ever turbocharged Corvette, and it has twin turbos. But the thing is, they didn't add some forced induction to the regular Stingray engine. They turbocharged the flat-plane crank Z06 engine, which means the new Corvette ZR1 doesn't make 850 horsepower. It doesn't make 950 horsepower. No, this new rear-wheel drive ZR1 makes 1,064 horsepower.
1,064 horsepower. That's fun to say. It's also fun to say that it has more power than a McLaren P1, or a 918 Spider, or a LaFerrari, which it does, or a Bugatti Veyron. And okay, I just named a bunch of old cars, but look at the new ones. Ferrari SF90, 986 horsepower. That's less. Still a twin-turbo V8, except the SF90 is a plug-in hybrid. It has electric motors to assist it. This has no hybridization of any kind. Granted, neither does a Dodge Demon 170, which has 1,025 horsepower, same ballpark, except the Demon requires E85 gas in order to achieve that number. This hits its 1,064 horses on pump gas. And there are other crazy things floating around at the moment, right? There's the incoming Mustang GTD, over 800 horsepower. 911 GT3 RS, 518 horsepower. That sounds measly. This has more than double the horsepower of a GT3 RS. That's because it's more of a GT2 RS fighter, but the new one of that hasn't been revealed. I'm sure it's going to be silly. Torque, 828 pound-feet, almost double the Z06 if you take a creative approach to mathematics. And yes, it's a little bit heavier than the Z06, but it's not that heavy. GM state a dry weight of 3670 pounds for this, compared to the 3434 in the Z06. So a couple of hundred pounds more, but unless you fill the tank with lead, that is still an absurd power to weight ratio. This thing is gonna be, well, we'll drive it when the time comes. But just remember, all that power is going to these rear wheels. And I know it was a controversial move to make the Corvette a mid-engine for this generation, but if you had that engine up front with that power, you're not going anywhere. And there are plenty of Hellcat and Demon owners that are gonna tell you that spinning ain't winning. Even if you added more power to this as it currently stands, you'd probably need to make some sort of special run, special edition, all-wheel drive version with a really cool name. Wink. No, they haven't told me anything about the Zora. I'm sure it's coming though. Anyway, the ZR1 engine. Let's take a look at this bastard.
So this is similar to the Z06 engine, the LT6. Well, at least it has a similar block and crankshaft. But this is the LT7, meaning the ports and combustion chambers are different. The cam profiles and timing are different. It has additional oil scavenging, air-to-water charge coolers, and some anti-lag type trickery, all to make sure those two mono-scroll turbochargers can do their job of feeding extra air to the engine as fast as possible. And to keep up with the higher fuel demand, it has secondary port fuel injection. The transmission is the same 8-speed DCT that's been revised, with lighter gears, a stronger shaft, and improved lube. This engine, with 828 pound-feet of torque, should be a monster all the way through its rev range. A rev range, by the way, that goes all the way to 8,000 RPM.
Just to put that into perspective, this is a C6 2010 ZR1, and it's already an insane car. Woo! And that new ZR1 hits this car's peak horsepower of 638 at 4,100 RPM. That's halfway through its rev range. And it hits the C7 ZR1's peak horsepower of 755 at 4,750 RPM.
Nah, that was pretty cool. Don't get cutaways like that on Extra Throttle House. That is production, is what that is. Anyway, I asked GM why turbos versus the supercharger, because the ZR1s that Thomas just mentioned, those were supercharged and no one complained. And GM said that they went turbo over supercharger because they wanted to maintain a low rotating mass and it was a more efficient solution for increased power. Which is all well and good, but in the past and from our experience, turbocharged vehicles sound more muffled than their naturally aspirated or supercharged brothers. So here's a clip that we've recorded of the Z06. Now here's a clip from GM of the ZR1, and you can be the judge if it's better or worse or the same. All right, GM have given me some fun facts here, and in some ways they're quite stupid. So the turbos get up to 2/3 the temperature of the space shuttle on re-entry. Now I know you're thinking, how the hell do I identify with that number? Don't worry, we've translated it. It is the same temperature as the inside of a Pop-Tart. The exhaust produces 37 pounds of thrust. Also, don't know what that means. My reference frame for that is Thomas after a shawarma lunch. They also say the turbo blade tips spin at 1.7 times the speed of sound and can consume an Olympic swimming pool's area of air in 4 minutes. Hard to quantify, I know. Don't worry, we've done the science. That's the same amount as 500 million thimbles. Let's take a step back for a second though, because we're getting a bit silly. And even though this has some silly numbers going for it, it's not a silly car. In some ways, it looks a bit like a Z06, but in other ways, not so much at all, especially if you get it with the ZTK package, which this one has. So, front splitter, dive planes, same as Z07, as are the underbody strakes. However, come back here and you have the flow-through hood, which is immediately noticeable and reminds me, especially as it comes down here, of a 488 Pista, which is the special version of the Ferrari 488. So when I see this, I immediately think, that's special. If you get the ZTK, you get a taller carbon fiber gurney lip here. But yeah, I think that was really, really important to differentiate this, because otherwise they all start to look the same. We have new wheel options for the ZR1. These are the new carbon fiber wheels. Make of them what you will. I think they look pretty neat. There's also the option of an aluminium wheel. We have it here today in the edge blue finish, which tricks my mind into thinking that it's magnesium, thanks to Porsche's Weissach package. It's not, it's just aluminium, and it comes in 4 different finishes. Inside of those wheels sit some even larger carbon ceramic brakes, larger than the Z06. So the largest carbon ceramics ever fitted to a Corvette. And then wrapping the wheels on the ZTK package are the Cup 2Rs that we know and love from the Z07 package that have put down a ridiculous time on our test track. And then if you don't get the ZTK, you get some PS4Ss, which is interesting because the PSS5s are the new version of the PS4Ss. So I imagine that's just because they've been developing them with GM for ages and therefore they don't benefit from the PSS5s. We'll have to drive them to find out. Moving back Carbon fiber roof, standard on ZR1, optional on Z07. The biggest thing is that this has the wishbone thing that we know as a recognition signal for a Z06, because it's quite hard to tell when you look at Corvettes in the wild. Until they get close, you don't know if they're a Stingray or a Z06. And this wishbone has been the biggest way to tell, except on the ZR1, there's an actual air intake here, a real functional thing. And it's subtle, but it's kind of cool. The biggest differentiator then is this big F-off wing. Like, come on. I'm not a big fan of the Z06 wing, the way it sort of does this all within the width of the body. That's more of like a sparrow's wing. This is an albatross. And this, in combination with everything else in the ZTK package, means that this car produces, at its top speed, over 1,200 pounds of downforce. Big number. Not as big as the Viper ACR with its extreme aero package, which does 1,700 pounds of downforce, or the 911 GT3 RS, almost 1,900 pounds of downforce. So basically, this is a tin can piece of crap. You can't buy it. It's absolutely not worth it. You also can't buy it in convertible form because you don't benefit from the extra air intakes that the coupe gets. And Americans, I'm sorry I'm saying coupe. I can't bring myself to say coupe. It just, that's where chickens live, okay? On the coupe, we have these extra air inlets on the hatch right here. But perhaps more importantly, something more special is happening here. That is a split window. Something we haven't seen on a Corvette in 60 years. 1963 C2 Corvette. And anyone who knows Corvettes knows that that's a very special year and a very special trim. And the market shows that. If you try and buy a split window C2 Corvette, it's more than double the price of any other Corvette in that generation. That, I think, is GM's way of saying that this is rather special. Is it any more special inside? Well, at first glance, not really. This is the C8 Corvette that we've known for a while now. And yeah, if the word squircle triggers you, sorry, it's still a square steering wheel. I absolutely love it, no problem with it at all. We do have some ZR1 badging going on here, and we have some special ZR1 specific stitching on the door cards. And really the biggest thing is, for the first time ever in the gauge cluster, there is now a digital boost gauge. But yeah, I like this cabin. I've always liked this cabin. This is a new color, habanero. That's enough for me. Other differences you'll feel from the driver's seat is that they've changed the suspension tuning, so it has lower ride frequencies than the Z06, apparently better for livability. We'll find out when we try it. The ZTK package has different suspension spring rates, so that's even more track focused, but I'm told that doesn't make it unlivable, because I know that even like Camaro ZL1 1LE was way harsher than ZL1 non-1LE. Apparently it's not even going to be close to that level of compliance difference. There's a lot to absorb here, and not just the fact that this whole thing is now a sub 10-second quarter-mile, 1,000-something horsepower monster, but like, I just wasn't expecting it. And sometimes, have you ever come out of a film at the cinema and you're just like, I need to talk to someone about this? Yeah. That was me appearing.
Did you just teleport?
I teleported.
Wow, that's
from
incredible.
Michigan, where I was yesterday, to here.
To here. I must say, it does look really good. I mean, I haven't seen it, obviously.
It's right there.
Nice. We've augmented that into the shot.
Am I looking the right way?
Probably.
Did you ever think it would have 1,064 horsepower?
James, I cannot comprehend what, like, the flat plane crank, the twin turbos, the 8,000 RPM, the 1,000 horsepower, it's all so improbable. It's such an unbelievable set of things.
But here's why it might not matter.
Oh, okay.
We don't know the price yet.
Oh yeah, it could be $1 million.
So if it can't,
yeah.
Hopefully GM are like, doing the GM thing and destroying everyone on price, and hopefully it starts at like, I'm going to come up with a number here, 195 US.
Well, what's the Z06?
I don't know.
You can get it up to that price, I think, roughly.
Maybe not in US.
No,
but
in Canadian you can.
Yeah, by the time you're on 3LZ package, all that sort of stuff.
It will be a substantially expensive vehicle.
It will be. But if it's that versus if it's $500,000, like, I'll get excited all over again.
Yeah.
If it's not ridiculous.
If it's not $500,000. Well, that's what it's been doing. That's what the C8 generation's been doing, is all of that performance undercutting the prices of everything, right?
Here's the good news.
Okay.
I think the C6 generation, which you saw briefly in this video, they made like sub 5,000 of them.
Yeah.
And then the C7, I think there was even fewer
Right.
or more, whichever one's more true. But they're not limiting this.
We're still pointing to it.
It's right there.
I'm sorry. You can't.
I'm
Let's
committed.
just take a second and look at this car, okay? First of all,
Not limited, anyway, that was the thing. If you want one and it's affordable, and whatever the price it, you can buy one.
all right, let's take a second to look at it. Here's what I've always thought. We've talked about this before. The Z06 is a little bit, it almost looks like a C8 that has been cartoonized a little bit too much. Like, it's like the wing is angular, there's stuff that happened in the dive planes and the cars. This is almost a simpler, yet more aggressive design.
But it's the same thing. It's still got dive planes, it's got an even bigger wing. How is this not more cartoonized?
I don't know, because the wing, the wing is more honest about being a wing. It's just
It's more confident.
It's a big wing.
It's a more confident wing.
It's a more confident wing, and it's got
Yeah.
the hood bit that dips in like an SF90.
I think if I was to spec
so
one,
good.
I wouldn't do this.
It's-
It's not weird to them. There's an augmented version.
yeah, we're bad at this.
I would,
Room Before Race is the only one that could do this. We
I
can't
would,
believe it.
I would find a way to get the edge blue in.
The what?
The edge blue. Because the blue, that's the ZR1 thing. Sorry, ZR1. No, Canadian soil now. I'm safe.
Right.
ZR1. That's the blue. You know, we saw it on the engine of the C6. That blue, I think, is the signature. And for me, it's not enough that it's on the engine. I would probably do the blue aluminium wheels, or I would do a blue stripe.
No, it's too much.
I agree, 100%. What would you do?
I actually really like the white with the orange stripe. I think it looks
White and
really, really good. I think it looks really, really good. I keep
But
looking over
at
here.
it now,
and it's like,
it looks
I'm wishing
so
it
much
was there.
like pavement to me.
But okay, the split window though is interesting.
I think it works.
No, it doesn't not work. It's just when you told me it had the split window like the C2, I was really super excited. But it's much more of an homage than it is. It's just there's a lot going on in the split window. As
There's a lot going on in the car. It's still busy. I'm still not in love with the rear end.
It's
Yeah,
over here.
I'm still not in love with
look.
it. I think it's still a bit garish. The wing helps, but they didn't make that as beautiful, and that's where the Italians and the Maseratis and other stuff are.
Fair enough. But it is still like it's such obviously a mid-engine design, and that's probably the coolest part about it.
No, I'm blown away. As we said, this wasn't for the extra throttle house guys. It's too much.
It's too exciting. It's just too exciting.
They'll blow up.
Yeah, they'll just burst. They
yeah.
don't know what happens. So when we get to drive this thing, what the heck are we going to put it up against? Because the performance is going to be absurd. Like, we're talking like Revuelto.
Revuelto you could do.
It's Revuelto.
Revuelto.
No, with no V, it was a B.
But again, same as the SF90. More horsepower than the Revuelto.
Yeah.
No hybridization. I don't like
how did they do
when do you ever see a warranted, like people twin turbo R8s all the time, natural, but they're not warranted.
No, they blow up. I don't know, it's crazy. And it is gonna, the lack of EV is going to hurt it a little bit compared to things like the Revuelto in terms of performance. Just because that extra EV torque up front,
But
the
it's
all-wheel
lighter.
drive and the whole thing. It is lighter, so maybe in the top end. Oh, that's such an exciting race. I'm getting excited about it right
So
now.
there you go. That's a good matchup.
That's
you
a good
can
one.
do a lot of things.
Yeah.
I really, I'm not. It's not like right now. I don't feel like okay. Don't be crap. Just don't be crap. Because it's just not gonna be.
Yeah.
But don't be so expensive.
That's all it has to do. Well, we've seen the leaderboard with the Z06. Like,
know.
look at that lap
I know.
time. Like, what the heck is this gonna do
I
around
like
our
these
track?
hex. I like these hex.
I'm just trying to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I dropped an F-bomb recently in a video and I felt real bad about it, so
Well,
I'm trying to bring it back.
as far as I'm concerned, this is GM's equivalent of dropping an F-bomb.
Yeah, to everyone else. This is a very exciting car. I mean, it would be if it were here.
It is. You have to believe.
Okay.
It's like that scene in Hook where